Hi everyone, today we will be talking about helping ELL students learn using RTI and graphic organizers. In this presentation, we will talk about 2 ways to support English language learners using Strategy 25 RTI and Strategy 30 graphic organizers. We will explain what each strategy is, we will show some examples, and share short demonstration activities, as well as explain how they help ELL students learn. Starting with RTI. RTI stands for Response to Intervention. RTI is a system that helps teachers figure out what kind of support a student needs. It allows a teacher to notice problems early on and respond right away. It is composed of 3 levels of support called tiers. These tiers provide the teacher with a clear plan to follow to help their students. Again, RTI has 3 tiers of support. Starting with Tier 1, it is for the whole class. I want you to think of this as providing and using pictures, giving clear directions, and doing group activities that help all students, including ELL students. Tier 2 is for students who are not making enough progress in Tier 1 alone. These students get a little extra help in small group, focusing on specific skills. Tier 3 is the most intensive level of support. It is for students who have not made enough progress in Tier 1 or Tier 2. These students normally work individually with a teacher, specialist, or an aide. The overall goal of RTI is to make sure students are getting the support they need as soon as possible and to keep track of how they're doing. Okay, now that we have a little background knowledge of what RTI is, we are going to explore a scenario of how RTI might appear in your classroom with a student who is new to English and struggling with reading. I'm going to ask you to read the scenario twice. The first time, I just want you to read it. Any questions that are popping into your mind, save those. The second time, I want you to answer these questions. What might be hard for Alyssa at school? How do you think she feels about being new and still learning English? What's one thing a teacher can do to help a student like Alyssa? Again, please read the scenario twice, and then we will continue on the next portion. Feel free to pause the video. Okay, now that you've had time to read our scenario about our lovely student Alyssa, I'm going to ask a few of our class members to share aloud with us. Okay? We are going to start with the first question. What might be hard for Alyssa at school? Okay, go ahead. What might be hard for Alyssa at school? Yeah, she might not understand what the teacher is saying. That's a really good point. Why? Because what is her first language? What's her home language? Yes, Spanish, you're right. Her home language is Spanish. And does anyone know where she's coming from? Where did she just move from? Yes, California, you're right. Yes, so we have our new student here, Alyssa. Her home language is Spanish. She just moved from California. So something that might be hard for her is she might not understand what the teacher is saying. What else could be hard for her? Go ahead. It could be hard for her to read a book if they're all in English. Yes, that could be very difficult. What else? She might not know how to ask for help. You're correct. And how would that make you feel? If you didn't know how to ask for help, how would that make you feel? Yeah, it'd make you a little frustrated, a little alone. You're right. You're correct. All right, those are all great answers to our first question. Now let's look at our second one. How do you think she feels being new and still learning English? So think about, how does she feel? Let's talk about our feelings now. All right, go ahead. She might be shy and nervous. Yeah, I get shy and nervous too. What else? What else might she be feeling? Left out or different from other kids? And why? Why do you feel like she's different from other kids? Yes, because it tells us that most of her classmates speak and understand English fluently, right? Good job, good points. Last one I'm going to call on. What might she be feeling new about being new and still learning English? She might be scared to talk in class. That is correct. Yeah, because how would it make you feel if you're coming into a new school, not fully understanding English, and your teacher calls on you? You might be super nervous and super scared to answer aloud. Very good points, everyone. We're going to go to our next question, our last question. What's one thing a teacher can do to help a student like Alyssa? Okay, go ahead. Maybe give the Alyssa some pictures to explain things. Yep, that's correct. What else? I like that one. Give her a buddy who speaks Spanish and English. And how can that help her? Just translate. Good job. I like that one. And who loves a buddy? I love a buddy. Last one I'm going to call on. Go ahead. Oh, I like that one too. Let her use books in Spanish and English. Both words, right? I like that one. It's similar to a buddy, but it allows her to have her independence. Good points, everyone. Okay, now that we've had a little bit of time to review our scenario, we are going to look at how RTI supports Alyssa in the scenario. Tier 1. Alyssa joins regular lessons with the whole class. We use pictures, gestures, sentence frames, and clear direction. She sits with a buddy who helps her understand and feel included. Tier 2. Alyssa needs more support, so we work with her in a small group 3 times a week. We practice reading simple stories, learning new words, and retelling events with picture cards. Tier 3. Alyssa still struggles with reading and writing. She gets daily one-on-one support with a reading specialist. They go slow, repeat directions, and use tools like phonics cards and bilingual books. So you can see from the breaking down, we have tier 1, 2, and 3 for our student in the scenario. As we continue and as we wrap up RTI, I want you to think of the main points here. RTI helps teachers give students the support they need at the right time. It is composed of 3 levels, 3 tiers: whole class, small group, and one-on-one help. And for English learners like Alyssa, RTI makes learning easier by using visuals, extra practice, and then personal support. Teachers can also check how students are doing and make changes as needed. RTI helps students feel safe and supported so they can grow. Now that we're finished learning about RTI, I'm going to pass it over to my teammates, and they are going to talk about Strategy 30, graphic organizers.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dana Carranza Cortes, and today I will be talking about graphic organizers with an interactive read aloud using Story Map, which is one of the 4 graphic organizers that we have previously discussed. So this is an RTI activity. Starting off with just explaining that this activity is intended for the use of young learners, more specifically in the K through 2nd grade setting. We focus on reading comprehension. This is a tier 1 activity, meaning it is for everyone. And our tool that we will be using is a graphic organizer known as the Story Map, with our book example from the Smart Cooking. All right, so just to kind of clarify before we get into this, this is typically a 15 to 20-minute lesson, something that is essential for RTI, but however, for my sake of time, we're going to shorten this a little bit. Start off with your introduction. Something you want to start off with is presenting what graphic organizer you will be using. In our case, we'll be using the Story Map, which you can start off with saying something like, today we're going to use this special tool known as a graphic organizer to help us understand what is happening in our story. And number 2, make sure to state how graphic organizers help us. So we can say something around the lines of, it helps our brains to organize our ideas and understand our story, especially when it is too long or has tons of details. And this specifically is an RTI Tier 1 strategy. You won't really say that, but just for our knowledge, this is a Tier 1 strategy. And then you want to model your read aloud. So you want to make sure that your reading is clear and easy to understand. Any words that students may or may not understand, you want to make sure you clarify. So just to demonstrate to you guys, we'll start off with something like, greetings. I am a cookie. I live in a bakery on a street corner near a river. Come on in. So that's just the intro to our story. And then you want to make sure to think and pause. This is a great strategy for our knowledge, our brain. Sometimes it can become a little too overwhelming. So you can stop after the intro and ask, who is the main character? As this is very important part of our story map. So who is the character? Who is our main character? We want to know, right? Okay. Number 3, you want to do an interactive guided practice. So continue reading. You want to make sure to pause at the story's problems, main events, ask questions such as what challenge is the cookie facing. You want to use strategies to get students to think, share, whatever it may be. So one strategy I like to use is think, pair, share. This guides students, and you can guide them to help kind of fill out the problem box on the story map or any box really, but independent practice is our fourth step. You want to allow students to fill in their story map portion. You can use the solution part where they kind of find the solution, fill it in on their story map. You want to review these parts as well and make sure that everything's making sense. And something super important of the RTI process is progress monitoring. The way we demonstrate this is by walking around the students, observing them, making sure that any students who need extra help are receiving that extra help. And it kind of shows you right here in this image how the teacher is showing her students like, hey, like, maybe we need to fix this. Like, does this make sense? If this doesn't make sense, sort of. And then finally, you want to wrap it up. Have a few students share what they wrote down on their story map. Help them if they didn't seem to make sense. If the main characters are on the solution part, kind of make sure that everything is making sense to them too. And remind your students that graphic organizers help us understand the story and makes it easier for us to remember the important parts. And just to kind of wrap this up, how does a story map support RTI Tier 1? The first way it supports RTI Tier 1 is it supports core comprehension. Story maps break down the essential parts of story, the character setting, problem, events, the solution, so all students can follow and make sense of what they are reading or what they hear. They can help all learners focus on key ideas without feeling overwhelmed as everything is stored, kept nicely, neatly. If they forgot something at the beginning of the story, it's all in their graphic organizer. Number 2, built-in differentiation. It can be scaffolded with images, word banks, sentence starters for English learners or students with IEPs without changing the lesson for the whole class. That's what's so great about the Tier 1 is it's for everyone. But there are ways to kind of support the students who need it a little more. And then also allows the advanced students to expand their story map by adding details, making it more adaptable for a range of needs. And finally, it's an easy formative assessment for you as a teacher because you can quickly check for the understandings of their completed story map, make sure that they're understanding what the process of a story looks like, they're understanding each component of the story map. And it's a great way to identify who needs support in Tier 2 before they start to fall behind, which we don't want to see. So thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great one.
Thank you to my other teammates for doing a great job at explaining tiers of RTI and the story map graphic organizer. I will continue our conversation about graphic organizers and how they support the English learners. And I'm going to talk about the last 3 that we discussed, which is the Venn diagrams, flowcharts, and word webs. So just briefly, to summarize graphic organizers again, they are visual tools to help students, especially English learners. Graphic organizers help them to be able to make sense of information. These tools also help reduce the pressure of reading and writing everything in English for English learners. And instead, these help students see the relationships between ideas, and they're great for comparing stuff, for sequencing, building vocabulary, and they make learning more accessible to all students. So I'm going to go over some examples and have the class do some examples with me as well. So the first one we have is a Venn diagram. So I'm going to kind of go back to how my teammate Nancy talked about Elisa, and I'm going to basically bring the picture of imagining that Elisa is in a Tier 1 reading lesson, me and some of her peers. So basically we finished reading The Tortoise and the Hare, and now we're comparing the 2 characters and how they're similar, how they're different. So one circle is titled Tortoise, and it'll only be for things of the tortoise. And the other one is Hare, and the middle is what shows what they have in common. So I'm going to ask the class, what is something that we might write in the tortoise circle? Okay, I heard someone say slow but steady. Tortoise is known that he was slow but steady and that won the race, right? So if Tortoise was slow and but steady, what should we write for the hare? Exactly, exactly. We're going to write fast and confident, right? A hare and tortoise kind of were opposites, which is the whole point of this Venn diagram, is to see how they're opposites, correct? Okay, so now that we know that the tortoise is slow but steady and the hare is fast and confident, what is something we can write in the middle? What was something that they both had in common? Okay, someone said that they both ran the same race. Tortoise and the hare both ran the same race, right? They competed. Exactly. And that's a great in the middle because they both were able to do that, correct? So for the Venn diagram, even if Elisa, let's say, is still learning English, she can participate in this by using just simple words. As you can see from my example, we only use 3 to 5 words at max. And they're very simple, which was something that is able to help her as well build that confidence for the comprehension and the vocabulary at the same time. And the best thing about Venn diagrams is that you also could take this and create the pictures from the story and almost have it on the whiteboard as well and have them compare it with just pictures as well. It is very adaptable as well. So the next one we're going to talk about is the flow chart. Obviously, in a classroom, we would have a flow chart that is less confusing, less complicated, as it would say first, again, first, then next, last, and it would be more tiered, but I couldn't really find a good one in this presentation. So we're going to go with this one that's color coded. So now let's imagine that Elisa is in a tier 2 small group. And now we're practicing sequencing with a short story, which is where a flow chart comes in. So we're going to imagine that we're going to use this flow chart to show events from Jack and the Beanstalk, let's say. So, so just picture in this little small group, I would probably ask, we read Jack and the Beanstalk together as a small group. What was the first thing that Jack did, right? So what was the first thing? So someone might say, Jack trades his cow, right? Jack trades the cow, and what does he trade it for? Beans, exactly. So then what did he do with the beans next? Okay, so Jack then plants the beans, right? So first he traded the cow, and then he did plant the beans after he traded the cow. So then after he planted the beans, what happened to the beans? What's next? So next, the beanstalk grows from the beans, right? The beanstalk grows super, super tall. And then lastly, what does Jack do with that beanstalk? Okay, he climbs up the beanstalk, right? And it's a whole other part that we would probably be more complex and we probably get more into if we were focusing on the whole part. But using visuals and these short phrases kind of help students like Lisa understand the narrative order without needing to write it in full sentences. So we only focus on the beginning part to make sure that the comprehension is there at the beginning. And we use shortened phrases, just simple parts that happened in the story just to help get the idea behind for her that might happen. And the last one we're going to talk about is a word web. Word webs, I like word webs. So I think they're great for tier 1, tier 2 when we're introducing new vocabulary. So let's imagine that for the unit, we're going to use the word community. So with community, we're going to put it in the middle right there. And basically our job now is to branch out to what other words might you think of when you think of community. So what's a word you might think of when you think of community? Okay, someone said school community. We have a great community within our school, right? We have great teachers and we have our classroom is a community, right? So school is a great example of how that can branch out with community, right? So what's another one? What do you think when you think of community around? What's another word? Okay, Perfect. Someone said library. Do we have a library in our school? We do. Do we have a library kind of close by maybe some people's houses, or kind of you have to drive to it? Yeah, we do. And that is kind of a great example of a community, because we have the school community library and we have our community outside of school library as well. So what's another word? Okay, somebody said the grocery store. That is in our community, right? And a lot of people have to go to grocery stores, right? Exactly, exactly. And what's the last one we can think of? Think of like your peers that are around you. What are they to you? Okay, so neighbors is also a great example of community as well. So neighbors, we're all a community. We all have to work together, correct? And that is great neighbors. So the best part about a word web, especially for students like Elisa, students don't have to just do words, right? So students can also act out the words as well, like act out different of these words, and they can also add pictures or draw pictures to what they think is part of the community. And I think that's the greatest part about Word Web. They don't have to use the words, especially for students, again, that are trying to connect English to real world meaning. Having the picture there as well can help with the English word. And for a good first example, you could also encourage the student to use their home language as well, and then draw the pictures and then write it English underneath. Like it's really great. It's really great overall. So as earlier as one of my colleagues shared, RTIs help us support students like Lisa by giving the right help at the right time. Graphic organizers fit perfectly into this. They fit into whole class lessons, they fit into small group practices, and even one-on-one support is great as well. They make complex content clearer to students who need it, and they build confidence in the English language. And graphic organizers also support deeper thinking with fewer words as well. So to wrap up, whether we're comparing stories, breaking down a process, or just building vocabulary, graphic organizers are an excellent way to scaffold learning for English learners. They're flexible, they're flexible, visual, and easy to adapt across content areas. And most importantly, they help students like Lisa access and succeed in grade level materials as well. Thank you so much for listening to our thing today.